Hello my lovely loves, welcome back to The Process. It is the 2nd of January, it's a new year finally. I'm probably not going to upload this in live time, but happy new year anyway. I hope your 2022 is going magically. In the spirit of a new year and new beginnings, of course I have some new realizations and lessons that I've learned that I would love to share with you guys here and now. In the weeks leading up to New Year's Eve, I was not feeling good. I was finding it really hard to connect with myself and remember the things that make me feel aligned. I had a lot of external situations that were happening out of my control that instead of responding to, I began reacting to. One day of this energy led to another until it began snowballing into a few weeks of a mild depression. And that's the first lesson that I'd like to explore with you guys, and that is momentum. When challenges happen back to back, it can be really easy to just throw our hands up and say, I give up. And there's a difference between conscious surrender and giving up on ourselves. Conscious surrender is essentially saying, I'm here to feel what I need to feel, and giving up on yourself just means essentially self-sabotage in whatever way that looks like for you. For me, after the back-to-back challenges, I really started slacking on my diet first and foremost. I started eating quite unhealthily, and of course this fueled my brain fog, my irritability. What I learned in these few weeks of mild depression is that the more we stay in a vibration and the more that we act in alignment with that vibration, the more momentum we gain and the longer we stay in that vibration. Now, this isn't a new lesson for me essentially, but I really felt that I lived that so wholeheartedly in those few weeks that it really solidified as a truth for me as opposed to just a lesson. Esther Hicks or Abraham talk a lot about that in the law of attraction, and how by holding a positive thought we can gain momentum in that direction, therefore creating an energetic alignment with that vibration and attracting our realities by riding that momentum. In those few depressive weeks, I gained a lot of negative momentum. Every morning I would wake up, I would have one negative thought that would lead to 100 negative thoughts that would lead to anxiety, that would lead to me not eating or overeating, and after overeating I'd try to go to sleep and then not get enough sleep, and that gained so much momentum that every day started to look the same and essentially get worse and worse. Fast forward to New Year's Day, for the first time in weeks, I woke up with a smile on my face and positive thoughts. I had a really exciting day planned with my beautiful friend Sarah. I had a lot to look forward to, and I was so excited to get out of bed. Once I got out of bed, I was dancing around the house, I was getting ready, I was really happy, when my mind tried to pull me back to bed to be depressed. And it was in that moment that I was like, what is happening? Why would I want to go back to bed and be depressed when I'm finally happy after weeks of feeling so low? I had gained so much momentum towards that depressive identity that it was hard for me to slow down, pull the brakes, and embody a newer, higher, happy version of myself when it presented itself. So I think it's really healthy to just ask ourselves, in which direction am I gaining momentum? What thoughts am I thinking most frequently, and where are those thoughts taking me? What vibration are those thoughts putting me on? Because when your mind is telling you that you're stressed, that you're unwell, that you're incapable, for even just 30 seconds, that plants a seed to then grow into something bigger. I had to really catch myself, and instead of giving up, consciously surrendering to the feeling and almost holding space for myself and saying that we are not going in that direction anymore. I am not going in that direction anymore. I say we because I like to acknowledge all my emotions as almost separate entities, as a part of the whole experience of me. That really just helps me to process my emotions. I get a lot of inspiration from Inside Out, the Pixar movie, purely because I believe every emotion has a place and deserves a voice. But it's when you overuse an emotion, such as sadness or depression in my case, that all the other emotions don't have the opportunity to balance each other out, which we call neutrality. So it was a really beautiful realization for me, because once I realized that the only reason I had stayed in depression for so long was because of the momentum of my thoughts and my actions. A simple example is waking up and saying, I'm ugly. And because you feel ugly, you force yourself to go for a run, but you don't want to go for a run because you don't feel capable. So you just stay home, you overeat. Then you critique yourself because you've gained weight. Then you eat more because you're depressed. See how that momentum is just so unhealthy unhealthy and difficult to come out of when you're in it, right? Because each thought and each action fuels the next thing. So it's no wonder that we get stuck in these cycles. Once I caught that momentum, sat with it for a moment, took a deep breath, I put my music on and started momentum in another direction. And I let one good action lead to another. I danced around the house, I drank a glass of water, I called my friend, I told her let's go. We had beautiful music on the whole day and I kept that momentum going. I told myself that this wasn't just one day, but this was the momentum that I was picking up to carry on into my life, just the way I had done with the anxious and depressive thoughts. I had evidence to prove that this momentum stuff really works. Whichever direction we gain momentum in is the type of life that we attract back to us, to the type of life that we are taking ourselves towards. And I was talking to my friend throughout the day about the realization that I'd had. We were questioning why it felt so hard to be positive. It's funny how used to being stressed, being anxious, being depressed we are, that sometimes when we don't even need to feel depressed or anxious, we pull ourselves back to depression, anxiety, and stress because one, we're comfortable there and we're used to it, and two, because we're so sure that we're going to feel that again, that we need to prepare ourselves for that moment. Living life in that way is extremely detrimental to our well-being in the long term. Again, because we gain this steady momentum towards expecting the worst. It's not entirely unhealthy to know that things can go wrong and sometimes we're going to make mistakes, but to anticipate them, to fear them, and to identify with the existence of them as your entire life is just a really grim place to be. So the main takeaway is, if you are finding yourself in a depressive or anxious episode and you just can't stop fumbling in that direction, write it out as long as you need to, but also maybe begin to become aware of the momentum of your thoughts. Is there one thought that you can think in a positive direction? I think Esther Hicks says it's 17 seconds in the morning. If you can hold a positive thought for 17 seconds in the morning, that'll change the trajectory of your entire day. And this can look like, I'm so grateful for my bed, the sun is shining, I am alive, my blood is pumping, I'm breathing. Just going in that direction will help you so very much. If your initial knee-jerk reaction is, it's hard, I can't do this, just remember you've gained a lot of momentum. If you're speeding down a highway and I told you to suddenly turn left, you might crash. So imagine the changing of momentum as you gently pressing the brakes and then choosing where you want to go next. So that's lesson number 1. Number 2 is the toxicity of handling everything yourself. As I said, those few weeks leading up to New Year's Eve were really challenging for me, and I wasn't sharing that with anybody. Nobody knew what I was going through because I truly thought that it would just pass and that I would be fine, when the weight of what I was carrying on my mind and my heart, no human being should have to go through that alone, and I wouldn't want any of my loved ones to isolate themselves in the way that I did. What is funny about this is I thought that I was doing my loved ones a favor by hiding my pain from them. I don't want to be a burden to anybody, nor do I want to be identified with the sadness that I experience sometimes. Near the end of those few weeks, I had my family Christmas dinner and it was such a beautiful night. But when I got home, having full intention to finally get some proper rest, I finally felt happy because I'd gained so much momentum in the direction of not getting sleep, of eating unhealthily. I kept myself up until about 1, binge eating, watching TV shows, and literally keeping myself up by a thread. My eyes would droop and I would keep myself up. As I said, around 1, I finally got to bed, but because I had eaten so much and became so overtired, I couldn't sleep, which led to an extreme anxiety attack that lasted about 3 hours. I didn't feel like I could breathe, my body was shaking. It was a really hard night, really confronting night, and because I was in that vibration, all the depressive thoughts that I'd been hiding from everyone were coming up. All of the heartbreak and the pain and the grief of what I was experiencing came up, and it was just really hard. Because I hadn't told anyone, it made me feel even worse because I felt like nobody knew the gravity of what I was going through, and that fueled essentially what could have been a really harmful, dangerous situation for me to be in. This lesson was somewhat terrifying for me to learn, and again, I experienced it in such high intensity that it transitioned from a lesson to a truth that I'm going to live in my life. I want to walk, breathe, and embody this. We need to be more honest with each other coming into the new year. We do not need to handle things alone, and even just gently letting a few people around you know that you're going through a really hard time will really help them to be able to navigate in how to support you. So gently letting people know can just look like, hey, I still really want to have fun tonight, or I still really want to do this, but I just need to let you know that I'd really like to talk about this with you more, or I'd really like your support. Whatever language makes you feel safe. So please don't put yourselves in danger by trying to handle everything yourself. It is not worth it, and it never works. Your loved ones will never thank you for it. It's really just a form of self-sabotage. Those are my New Year's realizations / lessons. I hope that they help you through 2022. There's no reason to be afraid of feeling our emotions and sharing them with others. We are all human beings. We're all going through this experience, and the more we can share that with each other and make an authentic life less of a taboo, the happier I believe we're going to be as a collective. So with that said, remember, through the highs and lows, life is a process, and to move through in the path of least resistance. If you've made it to the end of the video, I'd really appreciate if you liked, commented, and subscribed to the channel. Those 3 simple ways keep my channel alive and help me to do this on a more frequent basis. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.